Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Here I'll be demonstrating how to create this cake starting from here. So, to begin, I'm going to head over to the tone panel and I'm just going to work with all these little sliders here. So exposure to begin with. I don't like to go too high on exposure too quickly, so I'll keep it at 65. I'll bring down the highlights and I'll up the shadows just to bring out a little more detail. And I might bring down the whites and add some contrast. The real magic I find happens in the tone curve. So I'm going to take this little button here, I'm going to add a little node, and I'm going to drag it up some. I'm going to go down to this first quarter of a section here, and I'll drag it down to add in some blacks. And I always like to go to the middle and just drag it up ever so slightly. So I'll show you guys the before and after of just that tone curve. And I feel like that really helps everything to pop and shape. Give you guys a before and after what we've done so far as well. And then I'm just going to gently crop this, straighten it. I'm going to use the edge of this top tier to help guide where my straight is. Alternatively, you can use the background. If you have like two tiles put together, there's like a line at the base, and you can use that as guidance as well. I'm going to press enter, and then we'll crop it afterwards for all the different social media platforms. So right now we're just focused on the colors, the tones, and the lighting. I'm going to up the vibrance. Ooh, I really like that. Don't really like to use saturation. I find that becomes overkill very quickly, so I just work with vibrance usually. We'll come down to the HSL section, and this is where we work with some colors. So we have a lot of blues. I'm going to kind of raise those just ever so slightly if my mouse wants to work. Same with the aquas. And the purples, definitely. Just make them a little bit more intense or visible. There it is, about 15. I'll take the yellow and the orange as well, just to really emphasize the gold. And then we'll work with the saturation. So I want the oranges, the yellows, the purple, and the aqua. I'll leave the blue where it is. It's the aqua that I want to really enhance. You don't have to go as far as I do here. I just really like the vibrancy of it all. Probably, if you like, you can play around with the hue as well. If you want to make it a little bit more aqua-y, I can drag it towards the green just to help it to pop a little more. But you don't want to go too far with this if you're creating a thumbnail for YouTube on a tutorial that you've done, because you want it to stay true to color as much as possible. I want my purple to be ever so slightly more pinky just to pop. And that's it. So from here, the original to what we've done so far. And if we look at just the HSL block, this is what it's done for us. So from here, what you could do is play around with some masking. I really love to play with masks. I'm going to do just a radial filter. I'm going to jump in here, highlight the cake, and I kind of like to add a bit of framing by inverting this and then darkening the space all around it. Let's make sure my cake is central. And then I'll grab the blacks and I'll drop the blacks, I'll drop the shadow and the highlights. And then I might play just a little bit of exposure. I find exposure to be really drastic really quickly, so I like to work with the shadows and the blacks and the highlights first. Do a quick before and after of the mask. It just really helps to draw your attention to the cake. Might even reduce that feather a little bit. And again, very, very subtle work here. I'm going to grab another brush and we're going to work in on those details of the flags just to really help them pop. I'm going to make my brush super tiny and I'm just going to go over all the areas that are highlighted already. So we're going to kind of like a dodge and burn. Maybe raise it to 20 on exposure, maybe about 10 or so on highlights, and you can always change this later. just going to paint in sections that are already nice and bright and highlighted. We're just really going to make that pop. So this section here. And I can speed this up a little because it might take a while. Okay, so it's going to be super subtle, and by the way, the brush feather and flows at 100. I'm just going to turn this on and off, and you can just see the detail in those flags, just how much more 3D and kind of dimension is added here. You could do the same again with another brush and add a little bit more darkness in the shadows, so I'll do that again. So brush, we want to drag down the shadows and the blacks, and start painting in where the darker areas naturally would fall based on the bends and the crevices of our flags. Okie dokie, so what does that look like? Just like that, so before and after. I'm also going to do it to the sides of the cake, but I want it to be much softer for this and a much larger brush. And we are going to drop the shadows and the blacks again, but not as much. I don't want it to be as obvious this time. So we're just going to go on the darker side of the cake. And just want to see what that kind of did. Super subtle, and I just want to erase anything that might have gone over the edge, and then do the same for the highlights. So another brush, up the highlights, maybe add a little bit of exposure, and in we paint into this section of the cake, and here as well. Can erase anything that might have gone over to the flag. And this is the before and after of that as well. All right. That's all I really do, as well as like the white balance. I can use like a little dropper and get it to automatically tell me what the white should be in this photo, or you can just use these sliders over here. I actually feel like I want to go a little bit more into the blue. I'll drag it slightly more into the pinks. I like having a little bit of a pink hue to the photo. It's just a personal preference. I really don't like green. And then we can crop it for whatever we need. It's Instagram or Facebook and whatnot. 1:1 is Facebook. So I'm just gonna get a bit of that cake board in. I don't want to chop out the flag. I'm going to hit enter and just see what that looks like. Cool. I think I want a little bit more of the cake board. Just like so. Kind of looks like the cake's floating a little bit, but I'm not too fussed about that. So I'm gonna go File, Export. I'll name it Facebook. And I'll save it in untitled, oopsies. Make a new folder for edited pics. And then want to make sure that it's on JPEG and the quality is at 100. Press export and that exports. And then you can do this the same for all the rest of the platforms. So if I want Instagram Reels, I want to go 16:9, kind of make it central. If you want to, you can add that little base if your cake stand has a base, just so it doesn't look like it's floating. I don't want to cut out the sides of the cake board either. Great. And that is our Instagram TV or Reels. I'll name this one Insta TV. It's also a good measure just to kind of go for a 4x5 as well. At the time of this recording, 4x5 is also Instagram crop. Make sure the cake is nice and central. And export. I'll just write 4x5. Perfect. And so that's how I like to edit my photos. It's actually pretty quick, and it's the same process for basically all my cake decorating shots. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Feel free to subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.